morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining this session. My name is Pruthiraj Barik, and I am working as a security engineer at Threatsys Technology. Today, I am going to talk about a topic that is becoming increasingly important in our digital world: the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023, commonly known as DPDP Act. So, I will try to explain this topic in very simple language. You don't need to have technical or legal background to understand this session. So, before we start the main topic, I would like to briefly introduce the organization I work with. Threatsys Technology Private Limited is a cybersecurity company providing wide range of cybersecurity services. The company works in areas such as cybersecurity consulting, security testing, compliance, digital forensics, managed security services, and cybersecurity solutions. So, Threatsys describes itself as certain associated and ISO 27001 certified cybersecurity company, and its work with organizations across different sectors such as finance, healthcare, government, IT, and other industries. So today we'll discuss uh, why India needed this law, what personal data means, what rights individuals have, what organization need to do, how DPDP is different from other data protection law, its current implementation status, and finally we look at the real life data breaches cases. So let's start with a simple question. How many of you shared your phone number with an application or website recently? Probably many of us. When we order food, shop online, make a payment, create an account, we share our information. For example, an online shopping application may know your name, phone number, address, and order history. We normally think I just give my phone number to the application, but that information is stored somewhere, processed somewhere, and sometimes shared with other service providers. So, important question becomes who has your data, why are they using it, how they are protecting it, and what happens if the information is leaked. This is the data privacy has become so important. Before understanding the DPDP, we first needed to understand what the personal data means. Thus, in the simple word, personal data is information that relates to an identifiable person. It can become very obvious like your name or phone number. It can also include your email address, financial information, location information, or information connected with you or online account. For example, imagine that I create an account on online shopping website. I provide my name, mobile number, email address, and delivery address. These details are connected to me, so they are my personal data. One important point I want to everyone is remember personal data is not only Aadhaar or bank information. Many ordinary pieces of information can become personal data when they are connected to an identifiable individuals. Now, come to the main question. What exactly is DPDP Act? The Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 is India's dedicated law dealing with the processing of digital personal data. In very simple word, it creates responsibilities for organizations that process personal data and provides rights to individuals. Think about it like this. Suppose I gave my phone number to an online shopping company. The company cannot simply treat that information as if it has no responsibility. It has to think about why the information being collected, how it being used, how it should be protected. At the same time, the individual gets certain rights under the law. So DPDP basically about responsible data processing and individual rights. Now let's understand why India needed this law. India has changed significantly in the last few years. We have UPI, online banking, e-commerce, food delivery, online education, digital healthcare, and many government services. This means that huge amount of personal data are being processed every day. With more data comes more risk. Data can be stolen, leaked, misused, or accused by unauthorized people. Imagine someone getting your access to a phone number, address, and other personal information. The information could potentially be used phishing, fraud, and other harmful activities. So India needed a stronger and more dedicated framework for digital personal data protection. The main idea is our digital economy grows, the need of protect personal data also grows. The DPDP Act has some very important objectives. The first is protecting individual privacy. Second, ensuring data security. Third is giving individual rights regarding their personal data. And the fourth is making organization accountable. Let's take a simple example. Suppose an application collects your phone number. The organization should have a proper reason to collecting it. It should protect that information. And where the law gives you the right regarding that information, the organization need to provide a way for your exercise those rights. So if I had summarized the objectives in one sentence, DPDP try to protect people while encouraging responsible use for personal data. Now let's understand the journey of personal data. Imagine that you are ordering something online. First, you provide your information, then organization. Now let's understand the journey of personal data. Imagine that you are ordering something online. First, you provide your information, then organization use that information to process your order. Your information may be stored in a database or cloud environment. It may also be processed by a service provider working on behalf of the organization. During this entire journey, the organization need to think about security and privacy. Finally, when the data is no longer required, it may need to be deleted depending on applicable requirements. So we can think about this as the important point is that the data protection is not just about storing data SQL, it's cover the whole data lifecycle. There are some important terms and needed to understand. First is the data principle, that basically the individual whose personal data being processed. In our example, that's you, customer. Next is the data fiduciary. This is the organization that decides why and how the personal data will be processed. For example, a bank or e-commerce company, then we have the data processor. This is an organization that processes the personal data on behalf of the data fiduciary. For example, a technology or cloud service provider. Finally, there is significant data fiduciary or SDF. There are data fiduciary that may designed by government based factors such as the volume or sensitivity of data, potential risk involved. Next slide. One of the most important part of DPDP is the rights given to individuals. For example, individual can have rights to obtain information about their personal data and its processing. There are also rights relating to correction and ensure where applicable. If it is based on the consent, individuals can also withdraw that consent. There is also grievance residual mechanism. Let's take a simple example. Suppose an application has the wrong phone number associated with your account. You should have mechanism to request correction. Or suppose processing is based on your consent and you no longer want to continue with the consent, you should able to withdraw it through an appropriate mechanism. So important message is the individual is not completely powerless when it comes their personal data. Now we move to the other side, organization. If a company collects your personal data, it's also takes on responsibility. First, it need to collect and process the data responsibly. It should provide appropriate information to individuals. It's needed implement a reasonable security safeguard. It's also needed to provide mechanism for applicable individuals' rights, and there is personal data breach. The organization has obligation for handling reporting as it required. Another important point, the data retention. That organization should not simply keep personal data forever without considering whether it is still needed or required be retained. So if you collect data, you have responsibility to manage and protect it. Now let's talk about one of the most commonly discussed topic, consent. Consent means that person understand what they are agreeing to. Imagine a application says we need your phone number to deliver your order. That's easy to understand, but imagine an application hides everything inside a log and confusing paragraph and simply says click to agree. A person may not understand what they are actually agreeing to. The DPDP framework focusing on making notice clear and understandable. Also remember, consent is important, but consent is not only the possible basis of processing under DPDP Act. So we should not say that every single processing activity always required consent. People should understand how their data is being processed. Now we come to an interesting question: is DPDP same as GDPR? The answer is no. GDPR is a European Union data protection law. DPDP is India's data protection law. Both are designed to protect personal data, but they have different legal structure terminology. For example, DPDP uses terms such as data principal and data fiduciary. GDPR uses terms such as data subject and data controller. We also should not say that DPDP is India's copy of GDPR. A better way to explain it, both law address data protection, but DPDP is India's one framework designed for India's legal and digital environment. India also had earlier privacy and data security provision. DPDP provides dedicated framework focused on specially on digital personal data. India is rapidly becoming a digital economy. Think about UPI, online shopping, digital healthcare, online government services. All these services depends on data. If people don't trust digital services, they may hesitate to use them. So data protection is not only legal issues, it is also about digital trust. When people believe that organization will handle their information responsibly, they are more comfortable using digital services. That's why DPDP is important not for just companies but the growth of the India's digital economy. Now let's understand where this can be become relevant. Where does DPDP apply? I think about the number of organizations that process personal data. Bank process customer information, e-commerce companies process customer information, hospital process patients information. So this is not a law that only affect technology companies. Many different type of organization can come within this scope when they process digital personal data covered by the act. The simple question for an organization is, are we collecting or processing digital personal data? If the answer is yes, the organization need to understand whether and how the DPDP applies to its activities. A common question people ask is, if the DPDP Act was passed in 2023, why did implementation take time? The answer is the passing an act is only one part of the process. Detailed rule whether also required to explain how the frameworks would work in practice. The government conducted consultation and receives feedback from the different stakeholders. Organization also needed time to prepare. They may need to change their privacy notice, internal process, contracts, data management practices, and technical systems. So implementation was designed to happen in phases. So now look at where today. Now let's look at where we are today. The DPDP Act enacted in 2023, the DPDP Rule 2025 notified on 14th November 2025. The framework is being implemented in phases. This is important because the DPDP framework is no longer simply a proposed law waiting for rules. The act and rules are now places, and the organization are moving through the implementation and preparation process. The government has also established the Data Protection Board of India as part of the enforcement framework. So when you talk about the DPDP, we should talk about it's an active regulatory framework with phases implementation rather than something that still only being processed. Now let's connect everything with discuss with a real world example. In 2024 reports emerged about the exposure of sensitive customer information associated with Star Health. Report indicate that the information include personal data, medical related data. Let's think about this from normal person perspective. If someone gets your access to your name and phone number, that's already concerning. But imagine someone gets your access to your medical information that can be much more sensitive. It could potentially create risks such as phishing, fraud, harassment, or privacy loss. This case shows us why organization needs stronger control around sensitive personal information. That's need to think about who can access the data, who is where it is stored, and who are the third parties. Are access control working? The biggest lesson is the collecting personal data creates responsibility to and protect it. So we have reached the end of our session. Let's quickly summarize what we learned. First, personal data has values. Second, individuals have rights regarding their personal data. Third, organizations have responsibility where they collect and process their data. Fourth, privacy and cybersecurity need to work together. And finally, DPDP is not about all the checking compliance checkbox. It's about building the trust in the digital environment. So I would like to everyone remember just three things: protect data, respect rights, build trust. They're the basic idea behind the data protection. Thank you everyone for joining this session. I hope this session helped me DPDP easier to understand. So thank you. So thank you guys. Here is Ashish Samal. One question from Ashish Samal. What must a company do if personal data is breaches? So notify the data protection board and affected individuals as required under the DPDP framework. So next question from Kapileshwar, is DPDP compliance necessary for startups? Yes. If a startup process digital personal data, it can have DPDP obligation regardless if being small or newly established. The company needed appropriate measure for notice or consent. Security, data retention, user rights, breaches, handling, and third-party processors. Next, Pratyush Kumar. Can a company share personal data with any third party once it has collected consent? No, the company must ensure the sharing is for a lawful purpose and complies with the applicable DPDP obligation. Next, Bino, what happens when a company processes children's data under the DPDP Act? The company must obtain verified parent consent before processing the child's data. It must not harm, tracked behavioral monitor, or target children with advertising. So thank you all for joining this session, and